Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Fortnite story. I am joined alongside a very important figure of the Fortnite community. Has taken on a job that I'm sure a lot of you guys appreciate. This is Kinch Analytics, and you will get to know more about him. But how's it going, Kinch?
Hi everyone, it's going well, thanks. Yeah, really happy to be here. Looking forward to talking a bit about how I got to where I am.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to know where Kinch comes from. I think we can all understand the analytics part, but where does Kinch come from?
Mm. So my middle name is Kinchi. That's Kinchi. It's two Chinese words because I'm actually half Chinese. So yeah, I have a Chinese middle name, and Kinch just became like I guess my online moniker during a previous hobby that I had in speed cubing. I just was on the forums with the Kinch nickname, and then I just carried it forward into Fortnite.
Speed cubing. Can you
Mhm.
talk about what that is? And were you any good?
So that's solving Rubik's cubes as fast as possible. Um, it's I guess, quite a niche sport, not as popular as Fortnite, but there's a decent community. There's probably about 100,000, 200,000 around the world that participate in it. And yeah, that was my big hobby before I got into Fortnite at all. Did that for many years as a competitor, and yeah, I was pretty good. I set three world records,
Oh wow.
and 59 national records, I think, and
Jeez.
about, yeah, 300 medals or something I won in
Okay.
different tournaments. So
So
yeah.
by pretty good, you mean really freaking good. You're setting world records, bro. Like that's you're being humble, but that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty
So
good, pretty good.
so if I find someone in like the speed cubing world and I tell them I know
Mm.
Kinch, you think they'll know who you are? Do those records still stand?
Yeah, I don't think I hold any of the records anymore actually. Like the the hobby moves pretty fast as time goes on, and the times just get faster and faster. But yeah, I was known by Kinch or by my real name, Daniel. So yeah, if you quote my real name, they're probably more likely to know me. Otherwise, yeah, they might know Kinch as well.
Okay, that's cool. That's interesting. And then so how do you get started into Fortnite? Because speed cubing, Fortnite, they don't necessarily go together, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, how'd that all begin for you?
I mean, I've always liked, playing video games on the side. Um, but I grew up at a time when there wasn't really a big online gaming. Um, when I was a when I was the age that most Fortnite competitors are, there was no such thing as like online esports really. So I just grew up playing like single player games basically, as a little hobby on the side of other things. When Fortnite came, it just sounded like a game I wanted to try out and play with my friends online. And my brother started playing it a bit, and then a few friends started playing it, so it just became a hobby of mine. Um, and yeah, eventually my wife started playing it as well. Managed to rope her in,
Nice.
and yeah, so it was always just like a casual hobby. I've never actually been a competitive Fortnite player. A lot of people just assume like I'm crazy at the game or something, but I'm just not. Um, I've always been pretty much a casual player. I've always followed the competitive scene, but I've never put in the time to properly grind. I've never spent hours and hours in creative or anything like that. So, I'm not a complete bot. I can build my way and edit my way through, but um, I've never been at a high level, so to speak. Um,
Keyboard or
so yeah,
mouse? Keyboard and mouse or
yeah, yeah,
controller player?
keyboard and mouse.
Okay.
Which was which was actually a big change for me because growing up playing single player games on like consoles or whatever, a bit of COD, bit of games like that. I was always on controller on those things, and the only things I played on keyboard were like slow-paced management games, things like that. So when I started Fortnite, I just heard like people play keyboard and mouse for this game, it's better or whatever. So I just I just tried it and I was obviously awful and I had zero idea how on earth to do anything with a mouse back in 2018. So it was quite a learning curve to even become, moderately decent at the game. Yeah.
Nice. And so you clearly enjoyed the game. You enjoyed the
Hmm.
competitive side. Um, and then you said you were playing back in 2018. When did like you start to do the data and the analytics side of it? Because
Yeah.
as far as I can remember, it wasn't like those first couple of years. It's really
No,
been probably 2020 and on that you've
that's right.
focused on that.
Yeah, so as I said, I've always followed the competitive scene. I've been watching the tournaments since 2018, all the skirmishes and all the lands that Tifu and Cloaksy were winning. Um, and then 2019, we get into a more serious like online competitive world with the World Cup qualifiers, various one-off tournaments, the World Cup itself. I was watching all those. The thing is, I didn't really know that there was data out there to be got at. So I already had skills as a data analyst all through this time. As my job, I was a data analyst. I was just playing Fortnite casually and watching it competitively as just a casual viewer. And I think it was sometime after World Cup, I realized like, I could start adding various numbers together and produce interesting analytics. It was actually during the World Cup qualifiers, it was that I would say I first did my piece of analysis, um, which was pretty much just to aggregate people's performance across the qualifiers to try and figure out who's the actual favorites for the World Cup itself. Because
Interesting.
obviously, if you come first one week and 200th in all the other weeks, maybe you just got a bit lucky. Maybe you're not that great. And I just wanted to see like who was consistently good. Um, and yeah, I kind of actually worked out that Aqua and Nyrox were being severely underrated by people, specifically some bookmakers as well, who were offering odds. So I did have a little bet, and yeah, paid off. But I guess that was the first little bit of analytics I did. The first bit I published for the community, I think, was I might have posted something like December 2019, something about Cash Cup performance. I think overall Cash Cup performance for EU. I think I sort of rated Wakey and Benji Fishy back then as the top performers across all the Cash Cups. And then I started a Twitter profile. I think that was only in April 2020. Um, so we started off April 2020 with like 0 followers. And the thing that really kicked off my Twitter was the FNCS Solo Invitational, I think it was back then, where it was a 2-day tournament. You would compete across a series of games on both days, and Epic just didn't provide a leaderboard to sum up the 2 days.
Hmm.
So everyone knew where they stood after day one. And then during day two, they just had no idea whether they were catching up or not because in game, all their points were reset to 0 at the start of the day. So I produced this leaderboard, which was some rudimentary Google sheet that I was semi-manually updating. But yeah, I was pulling some data down from the game and just adding up two numbers basically and publishing it online. And that kind of blew up on Twitter, everybody needed to see where they were. And yeah, that's what got it all started, I guess.
Okay. And now everyone knows you as like you're the guy. If you need to know what the prediction is for like a qualifier, you are the guy that everyone is like, "Oh, what's
Mm.
Kinch say? Like this is going to be
Yeah.
what it is." And now you even offer like a paid service where
Yeah.
you're updating it as the tournament goes on. So, I mean, obviously don't tell us like the secrets, but how do you do that? Like I'm very interested to know how that works.
Yeah, so I got into it because during tournaments, you'd watch the streams and they would just be all like, "Oh, we don't know how many points we need to qualify for the next round," and they're just taking wild guesses. And I realized I could get way closer than people were just with all their guesses. So um, yeah, like I grab all the leaderboard data during the tournament, so I can get that from like Epic's API or any of the other third-party services that already process some of it. And then I just track what the leaderboard looks like pretty much. And if it looks So, for example, like the Cash Cup, Duo Cash Cup, I could just compare it to last week's Duo Cash Cup. If I have a record of how that progressed last week, then this week I can track this against last week, and maybe I can see it's like a few points higher pretty easily. Um, as for like newer tournaments, if you have nothing to track against, obviously that's a way more difficult thing to estimate. Um, but there's always things to compare to. A lot of it is also just like trying to figure out how many people are actually going to play the tournament because that has a huge effect on what the qualification will be. So I spend a lot of time just looking at how many players are in champs and how that's progressing over time and how popular a particular tournament is. Um, yeah, so I guess that's kind of how I estimate. Also, a big part of it is like just knowing how certain you are about things because you don't want to say like it's going to be 145 points and then just leave it at that because then it might be 146 and people get angry at you. So you have to make it clear like how confident you are in your estimate. And so I always give like a little range that it could be in. And obviously for a newer tournament, that range might be pretty big because I have a lot of uncertainty in my mind. But yeah, often we can narrow it down a lot as the tournament goes on.
Okay. So essentially real time data that you're using against historical data to try and
Hmm.
give you an accurate representation is like the dumbed down way of what goes on.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Okay.
let's go with that.
Um, and yeah, it's interesting because you always provide like 105 points. I'm 90% sure. 110 is like 95% sure. Like
Yeah,
obviously those numbers and percentages aren't right, but you always do give some like there's some wiggle room here, guys. I'm not gonna be perfect, but if you
yeah,
get this 100 or 99% sure number, you're gonna be good. Um,
yeah,
so it's interesting
yeah.
how you do that.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it has to be done because otherwise you get a lot of blame for being wrong, so to speak. You know, unless you could actually tell the future, there is no way to be sure what the number will be because it will depend on what people do in the final games. And yeah,
Well, and I'm sure the like final queue because sometimes
mm,
last queue pops at like 5 minutes, and then other times it pops 30
mm,
seconds before the queues end. Like that definitely has a big effect on what the
yes,
overall outcome's going to be, and especially who's in those games.
yeah, huge difference. And yeah, that makes like round three of FNCS, for example, it makes it very difficult to narrow it down properly because the threshold will change by five or even up to 10 points, just depending on how long the final queue is and who gets in the game, as you said. So yeah, sometimes I have to do a final update just after queues close, basically, and I just wait to see what games actually started, and then I can try and narrow it down a little bit more. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and obviously, you're the reason why people don't qualify because they easily would have gotten better placements or like more
yeah, yeah.
eliminations if you said it was higher, but they didn't because
Oh
Kinch
yeah,
said
yeah.
it was this. So I only needed to
Therefore,
get that
yeah,
many points.
yeah, yeah. That's is hilarious, and it does frustrate me at times because some people truly believe it. Nowadays, half the time when people post things like that, it is just a troll tweet. But at other times, it's like maybe people actually read this and believe it, and like Kinch is actually has no idea what he's talking about.
It's so funny because realistically, like it should be used as like a gauge to time your games more than like I need to not play this game out to the best of my ability. Like when you're in a game, you should be trying to play it out to the best of your ability every single game, and it really doesn't matter what the overall qualification number is unless you need okay, I need 30 points, so I need to drop like 5
Mm.
elims at least and win this game. That's a little
Yeah,
different whereas like, you're
yeah.
off by 1 point, then who
If you need
cares?
10 points, then you're looking at getting somewhere into the first moving, second moving zone or whatever. You know that, and whether it's 9 or 11 points required is no difference to your gameplay. You shouldn't actually care. Like you just play the game out. But yeah, there are some situations, as you said, like it's useful to sometimes know that you need a 10 kill win and that a 5 kill win isn't going to be enough. So, you need to maybe be a little bit aggressive. So it can definitely help you guide yourself in that. Or if you only need 3 points, for example, then maybe in in mid game, you're not going to push so hard to get game-winning loot. You're just going to sort of try and survive a little bit and just scrape those points at the beginning of the end game. So it can definitely help your strategy. Sometimes people do read a little bit too much into it. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the other things you've done that I'm super interested in is like, well, I guess two things. You track like who has the biggest elim games, or just kind of keep that on record, which I've found really cool that someone is posting that because Cam and Narwhal just beat that record
Yeah,
recently. And then the other thing is like the difficulty of lobbies. I always like found that
yeah.
interesting, so I'd love to hear how exactly you figured that out. And why? Like, why do you even care?
So I keep a database of all Fortnite tournament results, and this helps firstly with all the estimates that I do, and obviously just to pull out random stats. People enjoy a good stat on Twitter. So, and that was always part of, the sort of thing that I posted that people were interested in. And, you tag a player, maybe they'll share it and retweet it, and then you grow your own profile. I'm not saying that's the only thing I'm thinking about, but um,
Definitely doesn't hurt.
yeah, like, yeah, for sure. So, something like the most limbs in a game, that's a very easy thing for me to pull out because I literally just have a database. I need to write a few couple of lines of code just to order all the games by the most eliminations and maybe filter for a certain tournament or something. But that's a pretty easy one to do. Um, I guess the difficult thing is actually noticing when something significant happens because I don't really have any like alert set up to say, "Ooh, ding ding, Kinch, post something on Twitter because this guy just beat the record." It's more like, did I notice it happen while watching the tournament, or did someone else say something about it? And then I go and check and see whether it is actually a record. Yeah, as for lobby difficulty, that I just wanted a way to like compare the performances of people in different lobby qualities. Is like is a 30 kill win in an easy lobby better than a 5 kill win in a really difficult lobby? And so I want to basically what you need for that is a metric of how difficult the lobby is because
Right.
you already know their placement and their limbs. And to do that, the obvious way is just look at everyone in the lobby, look at how good they are, and then summarize that into one number somehow. Um, and that's basically what I did. I've got my own skill levels for each player. You can kind of think of that as Kinch PR, so to speak. I'm just like looking at tournament results and figuring out how good each player is. And then I look at everyone within a particular game and add up all their skill levels, and you basically get the difficulty of the lobby
Interesting.
from
So,
that.
what'd you
Yeah.
find more difficult? Is like a 5 kill win in a tough lobby, or a 30 kill win in an easy one?
So I would say a 5 kill win in a difficult lobby is definitely more impressive. I mean, there's an easy way of thinking about that, which is that in a difficult lobby, only one team out of the 50 is going to get a 5 kill win. Whereas in easy lobbies, if you put those same 50 teams in 50 different easy lobbies, probably 10 of them are going to drop a 30 bomb. So
Okay. Yeah,
you would
makes
definitely say
sense.
the tough lobby win is better. Um, yeah.
From looking at those stats, I don't know how often you do this, but is there like a duo that stands out to you as like they are consistently performing in top lobbies and stand above the rest, or is there a couple that stand above the rest? Is there anyone that stands out?
I mean, right now on EU, there are two duos that are by far and away the most consistent performers in top lobbies, and they are Seti and Kami, and Tayson and Chapix.
Okay.
Um,
No
so it's
surprise.
very, very easy by looking at results that Seti and Kami are easily the most consistent duo on EU. Actually, looked yesterday, they've played 17 finals lobbies together since they started at the beginning of last season. So there's Duo Cash Cups, FNCS qualifier finals, things like that. And 15 times they finished in the top eight out of 17,
Wow.
which is kind of crazy when you
That is,
consider how
yeah.
good the top 50 duos on EU are, and they're just always there every single time. Um, and then, yeah, Tayson and Chapix, their results aren't quite as consistent. but the only times that they fail are when they're contested. And for example, last season, 50-50 in slurp trucks, things like that. But every time they're on con, they're basically top five, if not top three.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
So what you're saying is one of those two teams is going to finish top. Actually, probably both of them are going to finish top 10 in FNCS if unconned.
I mean, Seti and Cami will be on con. I don't think they've been contested in a final for I don't know how long.
So what
Maybe
happens when you
once
make your own
ever.
split?
Um, yeah, I think Tayson and Trapix will probably be on con as well in North Collider. I think maybe there's one or two other teams that kind of fancy it, but if they call for grands, they're probably not going to contest Tayson. So, I would be really shocked if Cami and Tayson were not both at least top six. Very
Okay.
shocked if they weren't both there.
Yeah, I mean, I figure if you
Yeah,
ask anybody to make a prediction of their top five,
yeah.
likely both of those teams would
Both
be
those
in
teams are
there.
going to be there.
And
Yeah,
then there'd be like Queasy Vino, Pink
yep,
and
for sure.
Anas, and then, I don't know, throw in any fifth team that I guess like those four kind of stand out to me in EU. I
For
might
me,
be
for me,
missing one.
it's a top three that I would say is going to definitely be up there, which is the two plus Squeezy Vino.
Hmm.
Um, then I think the next tier is sort of Pink Anas. Um, Malibuca Mustache will depend a lot on their off spawn, whether they get contested on part of their split or not. And they're just generally quite an inconsistent team.
Yeah, they're streaky. When things go well,
Spectacularly
it goes
inconsistent.
really well. And then
Um,
when it goes poorly, it goes very
yeah.
poorly.
And then Thomas Strippin, I'd say as well.
Okay.
I think those are probably the six teams that actually have a reasonable chance of winning. Um, I'd be very surprised if anyone else won FNCS apart from those six.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're this far into the game, and at first it seemed like it was almost random who was going to win FNCS, and then
Mm.
now it's very much like you are one of these top players and you're winning FNCS, and then
Yeah.
there's that progression. You'll see a player make their first finals, and then you'll see them get bottom half, and then you'll see them get like mid third, and then they place
Yeah.
top 10, and then now it's like, okay, they have a legitimate shot of understanding how these lobbies work and could actually win. So it's cool to see that development within
Mm.
Fortnite, because it's not random as much as people
I,
want to say. It's very much controlled by
yeah.
these top players.
I think it's two things kind of balancing each other off from the old days. Like the old days, it felt like there was also some top teams, but then random teams could maybe win. And that's because the skill gap back then was very large because the game was lesser developed. But there were so many random things that could happen within a game, like stupidly overpowered weapons or strats. There were nade stacking. There was I don't know what all sorts of exploiting through builds, and I mean you can still do some of that. But anyway, there were a lot more items that could completely ruin a duo's game, no matter how good you were. And so the skill gap of the actual players was much lessened within the tournament. Whereas now, I think the skill gap has closed. It surely naturally does over time. But the meta is a lot more consistent. So people are able to take advantage of that small skill advantage that they have, um, because there are less things in the game that completely ruin everything, despite what they might complain about on Twitter about the game being in its worst state ever. For sure, there's still some problems and occasions where you die and it's not really your fault, but a lot less than they used to be.
Yeah, it's cool. Especially with having the same game mode for the past 2 years with trios one, duos the other. It has felt more consistent and regular to watch,
Yeah,
which is good and bad. There's certain people like I think Reese just put out a video about why mid game is so boring, and that's a lot because we're watching the same thing over and over again. But
yeah,
there's been some changes, to Surge that have happened, maybe to fix that. I don't know if it solves the issue completely, but it
mm,
definitely is at least a slight help. Have you thought about the Surge changes and what it does
yeah,
to a
for sure.
match?
I think it's a great change. I mean, I've actually always been an advocate of having less players in an endgame, and a lot of people will tell me I'm stupid, and the more stacked a game is, the better. But Fortnite end games are just so impossible to follow for an average viewer. Like there's 50 people in 50-50 zone or whatever, like 40 people in a moving zone. It's just impossible to know everything that's going on. And I would actually prefer there were slightly less people, which is what this Storm Surge thing results in. It's still a really nice number of people. There's still what is it, 44 instead of 50
Yeah.
going into the half zone. Um, and it will just make servers much less laggy, which seems to have worked yesterday in the finals. And just the mid game is more interesting. Um, for sure, there's other little downsides, but I think overall it's a really positive change.
Yeah, I would agree. I like how the lobbies played out. It didn't seem like there was a massive shift in the flow of the game. It just seemed like there's a little more action going on mid game, which
Mm.
decreases that downtime of everyone just sitting in
Yeah,
a box getting tags. Because
yeah,
there is, second, third zone, everyone just chilling. Like no one's really doing anything. And now
yeah,
we're
yeah.
getting that number down. I'm interested to see because we haven't seen it in like a finals lobby as much as you want to say a Cash Cup finals is similar. It's definitely not the FNCS caliber.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of edge teams I saw complaining about it, but I think there's ways they can improve upon whatever they were doing.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, people complaining that they can't figure out a strategy an hour after the change is released is a little bit early to say that
yeah,
it's rubbish. Like people will develop ways and the smarter players will figure out how to play Edge still. But yeah, I mean, I think overall it'll be fine. Like if you if Edge has become less powerful, then maybe so be it. Come and contest the center if you think it's OP.
yeah. Well, and if
Um,
you're having trouble getting Surge on Edge, don't land Edge. Like it's kind of
yeah,
that simple.
yeah, in a way, there's arguments against that, but yes, in a way, it is like that. Yeah,
um, But yeah, I'm interested to see how it plays out. I mean, obviously the timing isn't the best. You don't
sure.
want to see these kind of changes that could, especially in like the Heat's style, where
Mm.
they seem to be more stacked than anything else that we play because of like winner take all. It'll definitely be a huge shift in how things are played. But
Yeah.
again, like we both said, I don't think this is overall a bad change. I think the
Mm.
timing is the only bad thing, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like Epic, it's not as if they purposefully timed it for this time. Like, I'm sure they would have put it in at the beginning of the season if they had, I don't know, thought of it or managed to implement it or coded it or whatever. I'm sure they would have done it back then. But given that it hadn't been done until this week, is it better to make the change now and make people play in horrifically laggy lobbies, or is it, or sorry, to not make the change and make them play in laggy lobbies, or to just make the change last minute? And I feel like making the change is actually the better decision this week, because the lot of the lag was pretty unplayable at times.
Oh, definitely.
Um,
I played
and would only
FNCS.
yeah, it would only get worse in Grand's lobbies and stuff. So yeah, I think they made the right decision, assuming that they couldn't make the change earlier.
Yeah, and like there's a small sample size for people to go look at, so it's not just this is now the first time this is going to be implemented. You could go watch those round twos of Cash Cups to at least get a
Yeah,
slight better understanding of what's going on rather than,
yeah,
claiming this is the first time that you've ever played in this and making that excuse when it's literally the
mm.
same thing for everyone else in those lobbies. So I'm
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
interested.
they also wanted it in the Performance Evaluation Cup. That's when they tried to put it in to test it. Unfortunately, the test went wrong, so they couldn't actually test it then. So the Duo Cash Cup ended up being more like the test. So it is even a little bit later than they had planned this week. But
Okay.
yeah, I think if the duos put in the time in the next 24 hours, what is it, or semis, not too long, then they can figure some things out.
And now talking about semis, how do you feel about the format? And is there any teams that stand out to you? Is there anything that you think is like a clear best strategy? Like, talk to me about your thoughts on semifinals.
So I think the format is spectator friendly, I'd say. Um, they've experimented with both extremes in the past, whereas just consistency for a long time in the old FNCSs, and then they tried in Grand Royale where it was only reboots, um, and neither of those quite satisfied anybody. Uh, so I think this is a decent halfway house. I know you're going to get a couple of teams that you feel win a game and maybe don't really deserve to be in grands because they're not probably not the best 50 teams in the region. But that's part of any sport. You know, if somebody surprising qualifies to the top 50 of any sport, it's not the worst thing in the world. Congrats to them. They had their lucky day and we move on. It's like there's another FNCS in 3 months. It's not as if they're going to keep getting lucky every season. Different teams will have a bit of luck, different teams will have a bit of bad luck, and that's just part of sports, really. So I think the whole Victoria Royale thing is really good for spectators, so it kind of has to be kept in. Um, as for strategy, I think basically every team should just be looking to play consistency. And if that strat is not working out after 2, 3 games, then you switch strat, try and win a game. Like that way, you keep both your options open, basically. Because if you just try and risk everything for height in first moving or 50-50 every single game, then you're never putting yourself in position to win on consistency. Um, so I feel like the best strat is surely just try and have a decent first game and see what happens.
and
Obviously, if you get the opportunity to win the game in the first game, then of course. But yeah, there's no need to risk everything, I would say.
and eventually, if you are playing consistent, there will be those opportunities to win. Whether you're playing high, low, like you'll at
Yeah,
least get a shot
that too.
at it if you're
Yeah,
putting your hat in the ring on a regular basis.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, not every game is won from high ground, so
yeah.
um, yeah. I don't know what I should really know the stat on this probably, but I would be the guy that people ask. But if it feels like I don't know, probably the team on height in second moving, let's say, how often do you think they win the game? To me, it feels like 60, 70% maybe.
I was gonna say 50 to 60. I think it's probably a
50.
little
Yeah,
lower
maybe. Yeah.
because a lot of
Yeah.
teams
I
that
mean,
are on height at that point are normally super scuffed,
yeah.
and then have to
And they
make
can
a
lose
play.
height. Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
really comes down to like typically there's that duo on height, and you got the duo on low ground, then there's that one
Mm.
solo, and they
Solo in the middle.
control like who wins the game because they either make
Yeah.
a play for low or make a play for height, and they scuff one team, and then whoever they
Mm.
don't scuff typically wins the game, and like that
Mm.
somewhat
Can be.
seems like how it regularly happens. Um,
Yeah.
but that's just
Yeah.
anecdotal and
For
how
sure.
I feel. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah, teams shouldn't get too caught up on just trying to take height to win the game because, as we said, you can win from mid and low ground. We see it plenty still. So yeah, just
well,
play a consistent game. Like if you are a height team, then play height, sure, because you're used to that anyway. But if you're mid and low ground, you can still win games. So
and how do you feel about the overall FNCS format? Because I feel like it's not in the best spot. It is from a player's perspective. I feel like it's really good. But now as we're, a couple years into this, it seems almost like qualifier one's the best, then we lose the top 5 teams, so then it gets slightly worse. Then we lose the top 5 teams, then it gets slightly worse. Then we lost the top 15 teams. Now we're going into semis, which, is like supposed to get better, right? Qualifiers to semis should get better, but then it's
right.
less quality.
Mm.
And day 3 of semis is typically like, okay, who's really even playing in this at this point? No, obviously, like there are good players and teams,
Yeah.
but it's like getting worse. Like, again, we're losing the best teams, and
Mm.
so quality is getting worse, and then it just shoots back up when we play grands. And it feels really weird that qualifier one and then grands are the best two things as far as like overall player pool, and we just
Mm.
like go down in the middle. I've been trying to think of a way to improve upon that
Yeah.
because I do think it should be constant build up as opposed to like this weird loop of, quality of play. But also thinking about it from a player's perspective, it's really solid. Getting a top five in a qualifier is by no means easy. Then getting that straight advancement to the finals is awesome. And then for semifinals, it's like the perfect combination, like you just spoke about. So, I mean, I'd be interested. The only thing I've thought of is like a regular season almost, where you just remove semifinals and it's straight consistency to grand. So that way there is that
Yeah.
constant buildup. Other than that, like, I have no idea, bro.
So yeah, back before there was anybody auto qualifying to grands, when it was just qualifiers and then heats, and then just like top eight in each heat go through to final, and all the heats were separated. They didn't lead on to each other. Now back then, I had this idea that teams that did better overall in qualifiers should have a head start in the heats because it felt so bad that you could win all the qualifiers and then just have a bad 6 games in heats and you don't get to grounds. It just seemed ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I thought, like, if you're literally the best team in the qualifier, then you start heats with 60 points or something, and you just scale it down. And the team that just scraped into heats starts on zero. So it's like the advantage that you gain, but still everybody has a chance. If you start on zero, you could still qualify, you could catch up. But you have that disadvantage because you weren't as good in the qualifiers. And to me, that seemed a fairer way of doing it. Um, and then obviously into trio seasons last year, they started introducing auto qualifiers. Now, one of the big advantages of auto qualifying to grands from the qualifier finals is that it keeps qualifier finals really big hype because there's a big prize.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main reason that was added because qualifier finals felt very tame before. Um, and yeah, it also fixed the problem that you could really pop off in qualifiers and then not then have an off day in heats slash semi-finals. It fixed that problem. But I agree with you that yeah, the quality goes down from qualifier one all the way through to semis is correct. I wonder what you could do maybe is still have some auto qualifiers to finals, but maybe just top two. So you're removing less of the top teams. So qualifier three final is still really good quality. And then maybe after the three qualifiers, the top people on the series leaderboard go straight to grounds. So if you are coming fifth in these qualifier finals, you may still get straight to grounds, but you're still playing the later qualifier finals to keep the spectators interested because the bigger players are there, and also not being unfair on them because they eventually do auto call to grounds. And they'll always have an incentive to play well in qualifier two and three still because they don't know whether they're getting through on consistency. So maybe that's an idea. Um, what I really like, something they did add is this whole semi-finals session thing, where
Yeah.
if you do better on the series points leaderboard, you do have an advantage. I still think they could take that further because still first and 50th is in the same position on the series leaderboard. They all get into session one. Maybe they can take it further and um, I don't know, maybe do that thing with the points head start or maybe just have a few games where there's less teams in it. I don't know, something really radical. Like the first couple of games have 30 players in it from the series leaderboard, and then you add some more teams to give
That'd be
those top
crazy.
people a little bit more of an advantage. Yeah, there's a few things that I've thought of, as you can tell.
Yeah, I like the head start because it's almost like seeding. You play well enough during the qualifiers, you get seeded higher. So then
Yeah,
like there is that actual advantage and
yeah.
reward for playing well during the qualifiers. That's not a bad idea. Hey, Epic, listen up. My man's got some good ideas over here.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think overall the format has in general improved since the early FNCSs in terms of the fairness of qualification to grands. I would say the thing that has got worse is the spacing of the whole the tournament as a whole. The fact that qualifiers are so cramped together now. I'm not a big fan of that. I believe in, the first time it got really cramped was, I think, the February ones, the first season, this chapter. And that was because they just didn't have enough time in the season.
Right.
So I thought they would then space it out, go back to spacing it out, week to week, but it hasn't really happened. Maybe again, they're just lacking in time to actually run these tournaments in what is a relatively short season. Um, So maybe they just need less seasons in a year and we can space things out more. Because something I really used to enjoy was the storyline of the different teams through the qualifiers and working up towards grands. And now it's like, the qualifier starts last week and the semi-finals are this weekend. Like the whole of FNCS is basically over for almost everybody.
Yeah. I
And then it's
definitely
just
agree with
grand.
you. Because from like a talent and someone that's been on the other side trying to portray stories, there's
Mm,
nothing that I can tell you besides what I already knew going into the qualifiers. Because like even just talking about qualifier 3 where it's round 3, you basically have 40 minutes and then round 4 starts, and there's you could watch maybe 2 games on like 4x speed and learn something to then talk about. Otherwise
yeah.
it's relying on what you already know.
Mm,
And I'm sure for you from like a similar perspective, there's almost no time for you to even, pull some stats on like this team did this
yeah.
during round 3 and so on and so forth. I would love like each weekend was one qualifier.
Yeah.
Um,
The way it used to be.
yeah, but I
Yeah. I do prefer that.
I think it's like maybe it's because of the broadcast, because instead of like it being put out to 5 weeks, it's now,
Mm,
because you think there's a Sunday show and then Friday, Sunday the following week. That's a much shorter period of time than,
mm,
3 weeks for 3 qualifiers. And then you have semis
yeah.
right after. So that is my general inclination as to why it's been shortened.
Yeah, like in
But
terms of the logistics of getting people to the Blast Studios and stuff. You don't want them having to live in Denmark for 3/4 of the year because of all the FNCSs.
yeah,
So yeah, makes sense what you're saying.
well, it's not even just like talent. There's hundreds of people that work on the broadcast from both
Yes.
Blast and Epic, so there's a lot of people involved in having them constantly moving around doing stuff. That's just my general thought. Anyway, let's get back to you. I have a couple of questions about like
Okay.
your content that you've been putting out, because a couple months ago you started putting out regular YouTube content. The streams
Yeah.
have been more regular, and you've gone from focusing on like stats and stuff to now creating your own content, which is actually like really good. I've
Yeah.
loved some of the YouTube videos that you've put out. I can't check the streams. You're kind of an early streamer sometimes, so
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
By your standards. No,
but
just for your time zone.
what
Yeah. Yeah.
made you want to invest in YouTube content and streaming?
So um, I think the big change is that I'm now full time. So I left my other job as a data analyst. So I've now gone full time, and part of that strategy is to just build my profile, not just on Twitter but on any other platform, and just build the brand, I guess, the Kinch Analytics brand. Um, my long-term vision is that Kinch Analytics is a data analytics company in the esports industry, not just in Fortnite. Obviously, right now, just in Fortnite. Maybe in the future, we expand, and just try and become, um, I don't know, professional company. Not that we're not a professional company, because technically we are right now. But yeah, just building that name up and just getting other content out, especially on YouTube, like showing that just other ways to demonstrate your skills and things like this. So just trying to concentrate videos on not just random Fortnite content, but things that I really specialize in. So I create videos that are very data focused. Hopefully, still very entertaining, because data can be boring if it's literally just data.
No,
So
you do a great job
yeah.
as to portraying that in a way
Mm.
that makes sense for someone that doesn't have a data analytics degree.
Yes, that's the idea. Sometimes, sometimes I get so into the maths behind something that probably struggle to take out all the maths for the video because that's the stuff that really gets my brain going when I'm doing the maths. But yeah, we have to strip out as much of that as possible and just present it in a way that's accessible to people. And yeah, just try and get people's interest up in data analytics as well. Because I think a lot of the perception when you're a kid is that numbers, we hate maths, numbers are boring. Who wants to be a data analyst and stare at numbers all day? It sounds like the worst job in the world. I mean, yeah, sure, some will grow up and still think it's the most boring thing in the world, but there are definitely people out there that would be interested in this sort of thing, and most people they enjoy it, Yeah, I post a stat on Twitter and people will enjoy it because, seeing interesting numbers is entertaining. So yeah, I hope I'm bringing that to the Fortnite audience, something that was just not really there at all before.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. I mean,
yeah.
before you, there was Prodigy and One Up, and
Mm,
both of them. One Up was doing some stuff regularly, and he dropped
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
And then Prodigy, does some other stuff, but it's
Yeah.
been awesome to see someone provide this kind of tool and asset to the community. And I'd love to talk about Kinch Premium, which you've been putting out now for a while to help
Yeah.
players, but you
Mm,
do both those now. The YouTube content is providing even more value to simplifying, but still yet using that data that you're getting for the general audience. And then, like, obviously you have the premium service where you're
yeah.
giving people very, very helpful numbers, data, while, what do you charge? $5?
8 now.
8? Oh, whew, that's
Inflation.
tough. But yeah, like, how is building out Kinch Premium, like,
Mm.
and what is that for somebody who's listening and may not have any idea?
Yeah, so for some months I used to estimate all over Twitter for all the tournaments, and eventually I moved that over to a Discord just to organize it way better in a server. And and then obviously after a few months, it was just taking up a lot of my time, and people wanted more and more, and it was hard for me to say no, because I want to help people. And at that time, I also had a full-time job, so this was like a lot of my free time I was spending on it. And the thing is, when you're doing something essentially for free for so long that takes so much of your time, eventually you're just going to lose motivation to do it, um, because there's not enough reward. Sure, I was growing some social followers and getting some exposure, but that's not going to pay the bills. So, the only way I was ever going to carry on estimating for a long, long time was to charge for it, because then I have a responsibility to the people that are paying, and I have the motivation to do it. Um, if I'd never made Kinch Premium, there is no way I would still be estimating. I would have gotten so bored of it and had no motivation for it. So, yeah, anybody who gets annoyed by the fact I think that I charge, or thinks I should still be doing it on Twitter, well, maybe they should try putting in like hours and hours every week for free doing this sort of stuff on Twitter for months and months. So yeah, Kinch Premium was made to basically keep me going. Um, Absolutely not intended to make myself a millionaire, and it certainly hasn't. Yeah, it's just a way of having a small bit of income just to keep it all going and help out the community in that way. Um, and now it is expanding a bit. We are trying to make it bigger and bigger and add more things as we go on. So first of all, it was just points estimates. Now I add like general tournament advice before each tournament. So people want to know like strategy, especially around point systems, like how should they play. Um, they want ideas of like loadouts and all these sorts of things. So I provide all that, and then we have like drop maps, which also help them to get their perfect landing, obviously at their drop spot. We have some bots that just help them break down the maths that they need to do within their tournament. So sometimes they'll be like, I need 20 points to qualify. What is that? Do I need to come top five? I don't know. So we have some bots that help them break it down into placements and elims for them. Um, and yeah, there's more and more things that we'll add. the general idea is that it will become like the essential companion for any comp player, whether they care about estimates or not. Just more and more features so that it is your companion. Everything that you need to be a comp player will be in there. Um, and hopefully keep it at a cheap enough price that it's accessible, you know.
Yeah.
I could easily charge a lot more for this. I could offer these services to orgs or to any other company that would pay a lot more and it would make it a lot more exclusive. Um, but I want to keep it as open as possible so that the price is basically no barrier to almost everybody. Of course, there will be a few people that it is, but um, yeah, that's the general philosophy of where we're going with that.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry,
and
that
you
was a
were
very
off.
long advert for Kinch Premium.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Like that, I was asking you about it, so I'm glad you
Yeah.
talked about it. And you were offering a free trial too. So basically, anyone that
Yeah.
wanted to use it for FNCS like could have used
Mm.
it for free. And it's that
Yeah.
like good marketing strategy of giving someone something for free, and then they'll want more. So shout
Yeah.
out
A
to
lot of
you.
people just don't really know what it looks like. So the free trial is obviously it is to try and get more people to sign up, obviously as a business strategy. But it's totally understandable that they need something like a free trial because otherwise it's just channels that you can't see on Discord. So what on earth is this? And can I trust the points estimates as well? Yeah.
So for you, is it just you doing this, or do you have people helping you?
So it's me and my wife.
Okay.
So she also works a lot on the business. And in terms of like the maths and the estimates, that is me. She does everything else that supports the business basically. All of the customer service, dealing with all the DMs, support, and then just other general things outside our Discord server, obviously. Um, Tries to sort of, create business connections, deal with our contracts, accountancy, anything like that that's needed. So,
Cool.
oh,
You
and
guys.
a big part is the socials as well. So she does all the video editing.
Oh wow.
Does a lot of the this general strategy of our socials, um, creating ideas, all these sort of things, and then all the editing. I just do gather the data and record the voice, and then she takes it from there. So
Nice, nice. You
yeah,
guys are a good team. I was gonna ask,
yeah,
I forgot to who edited your videos, but she does a good job.
yeah, for sure.
Um, that's good to hear, man. And do you have plans to expand that? I know you said you wanted it to be like a larger company. Have you thought about bringing other people on, whether it be like part time, full time, anything like that?
Yeah, that is something we're definitely looking to do. I mean, not that we're hiring right now or anything, but it's sort of a case of, when we find the work, we'll bring people on. Um, I guess that's the general idea. And if the estimates get too much for me and we need to bring someone else in for that, then we will. Absolutely. Um, and yeah, if we want to expand on anything, we just have to look at the monetary value now. Obviously, we're not going to start paying someone thousands of pounds when he's only making pennies for us for whatever he's doing. So yeah, we have to look at it from a financial standpoint as well.
Of
Uh,
course.
yeah, long term, hopefully we will expand for sure.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, you seem to have expanded quite quickly over the past 2 years to
Mm.
like part time doing this for fun to now being a full time career that both you and your
Yeah,
wife support, which is really cool. It's impressive to be honest, bro. Like, congratulations and good for you,
thanks.
both of you guys, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we worked really hard on it, and the obviously there's some luck involved sometimes. I think our big stroke of luck was that there's just a gap in the market for data analysis in Fortnite. There was, as you said, barely anything on socials, so we were able to fill that gap initially, and that's what kickstarted everything. Um, yeah, a stroke of luck, and then a lot of hard work and knowledge, I guess.
I like it. Being a little humble. A lot of it was hard work. Um, Now, a couple of questions to wrap up. We're about at an hour here, so I don't want to hold you too long. But first question: what is your favorite Fortnite skin?
Uh, So I'm a massive Star Wars fan. So I play as Rey.
Okay.
Um, stick with the female characters as is the comp Fortnite way. But yeah, I play as Rey usually.
Nice. And then lastly, I mean, we've talked a lot about what you're doing, but here's a chance to plug any of your socials, and if you have anything coming up in the future that people should look out to, go for it.
Yeah, I mean my socials are my YouTube, Kinch Analytics, my Twitch, Kinch Analytics, and my Discord, which obviously has a silly URL invite link. But you can find that through my Twitter, which is also Kinch Analytics. Everything is Kinch Analytics, very easy to find. Um, yeah, that's basically the spaces in which we operate. Um, get in contact with me via DMs or wherever if you want to have a chat about anything in depth or anything you're interested in working with me on. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you, man, for coming on and sharing. And again, thank you for what you do for the community. Even though now it's paid for, but still, I enjoy some of the stuff in the YouTube content. So keep
yeah,
doing
yeah.
that. Definitely keep up with it
Will do.
because it's really cool.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. It was good fun just having a chat and it's interesting just to almost think about where I've come from as well because sometimes you don't really sometimes you forget these things.
Yeah, having that
And
like
just
self
yeah.
introspective moment of
Hmm.
like what all
Yeah, yeah.
happened. It's
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching, whether you be Spotify, YouTube, Google. Hopefully, we'll be on Apple one day if I can get an iPhone. And we appreciate you. If you have any complaints, comments, concerns, you want to tell me this is awesome, you could do that on Twitter at somebody's gun. It's down below. If you're watching on YouTube, if not, find me. Now, thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Yeah.